Hey everyone, welcome to TD2. Let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about Azure's fundamentals and computing and network services. So what I want to touch base on is for the students that missed TD1, I'll talk about how to get your account set up, just an introduction to computing and network resources, some infrastructure, creating a VM, and then some upcoming events. And then here's some benefits as well. So if this is your first time doing the TD for Azure Fundamentals, um, you get $100 credit when you sign up, and it's free for a whole 12 months to use any Azure service. If you go to the first TD and you watch from 348 to 649, it shows how I made my account, and you just had to click the Azure account button. Now to get started, we're going to talk about what is a virtual machine and why do we use VMs. So as you see right here, this is a nested VM in Azure VM, but it's basically the software and it allows you to use um, software that's similar to another computer, but on a separate device. So it's going to be hosted on a separate client. So this allows for virtualization. So you don't have to maintain physical hardware. And what is a virtual machine scale set? So when I was going through the documentation for the certification, it asks the difference between this and a virtual machine. And just know that it's used to automate most of the work for a virtual machine. It works with the load balancer. So if you need more and more instances, um, those will be configured based on demand. So this is automatically configured, updated, and managed by a virtual machine scale set. And then the two kinds of domains. So there's an update domain and a fault domain. Update domain, simple, applies updates. And then fault domain, how I would like to think of it, is just protecting against physical power and network failures. So we're going to create a virtual machine, configure its network accessibility, and then talk about some VPN gateways. So let's do our first exercise. Okay, so we're going to be creating our virtual machine. So we're going to use it with a Linux operating system. Again, you need to activate your sandbox. So you're granted 1 hour for this testing environment because this is free. So we're going to get started. So use the following Azure commands after your VM is created. Okay. Oh no. Well, I used AZ to. Wow. Okay. Well, you want to use AZVM after. I would use AZ, then AZVM create. So that we. Oh no, I messed up the command. I can't see it. Cool. So I would start with just typing AZ. Again, this is just so you can use Azure's commands. And then we're just going to create the virtual machine using AZVM create. But now that I know that works, let's wait. I wonder if I can actually. Okay. So I do provide the documentation for each exercise, so you can copy. I'm not sure if Control V will work in the command line, so I would right click and then paste, and then enter. But All right, well, it's just running. This is just the extension set as well. I'm not gonna make you do this as well because I talk about the extensions as well. So as long as you show a picture of you using the shell, oh, cool. As long as you have a picture of you using the shell like this, you'll be fine. All right. So that was the first exercise. And again, just take a screenshot. So you could just do this and take a screenshot just so I know you did it. I'll also probably show your name here. So a virtual machine and a virtual container are different because a virtual machine will virtualize the hardware, but a virtual container virtualizes the operating system, such as the Linux operating system we just looked at. So the benefit of using a virtual container is you don't really have to worry as much about the configuration. Um, and everything is sent as a single host when it's all bundled up. So any of its dependencies or any of the resources you need are all bundled up on a single host. But with a virtual machine, that require multiple hosts. So right here, I show this, that a virtual machine, you'll get complete control. As you can see, there's 3 separate hosts. But with the virtual container, it's all acquired on one host. And the benefit is portability and performance, but you don't get full control because it's all being bundled up onto one host. So if you want complete control, you would have to use a virtual machine. The other thing the certification talks about is Azure Functions. What I noticed was there's just 2 key benefits. So first, we're going to talk about what Azure Functions is. So it's just used to serverlessly compute um, and doesn't require any virtual machines or containers. So you don't need to install an operating system or download system updates, and allows for serverless management. That's a whole big premise about the cloud. So ideally, Azure Functions will set up all these configurations for you, all the infrastructure, but this is also great because you get to focus on your code, and that's what they want the people using Azure Functions to do. So all you would do is focus on your application you're developing. And then some virtual networking things. So Azure Network allows you to, they go into a lot of detail about each of these segments, but just know for isolation and segmentation, you can create multiple isolated virtual networks, internet communications. So it assigns an IP address so it could allow um, you to basically communicate with Internet Gateway. And then Azure resources, so SQL, Power Apps, and then commuting with on-premise resources. So again, this is like encrypted VPN connections, route network traffic. So in your subnets, you'll have route tables that allow you to define these rules. And this goes hand in hand as well with the inbound and outbound rules of filtering network traffic. And then lastly, you'll connect to virtual networks. So this one's interesting. So you can network, there's something called network peering. So you're allowed to use 2 virtual networks to connect directly. So now we'll do the second exercise. Okay, so we're gonna start with configuring network access. So let me rerun my Cloud Shell. So we're just gonna wait for this request. What I suggest is I have 2 links on the website if Squarespace is working, because I've ran into some issues with making the markup block. So you can get links to the exercises. If not, I'll send out an email, or I'll have maybe Carrie send out an email on how to access um, these 2 exercises. That way you don't have to type the commands. So that's why we're going to be using this documentation here. That way, I don't think anyone wants to type out these commands, including me. So yeah, you can just copy and then paste. So what this is doing is, okay, you're gonna access your web server's homepage. So you're gonna use the resource group. It's gonna identify what we did. We're gonna give it the name, my virtual machine, enter a query, and then you'll get an output. Um, Honestly, this is all we're gonna need because here we're just gonna be coming up with some sort of specifications for timing out. And it's not too useful. What we really care about is configuring network security groups. So we'll copy this. That way we can configure a network security group. That's what NSG means. So there, we did it. So we also named it My Virtual Machine Network Security Group. Done. Now we're going to want to define the rules. So we'll copy. Again, to paste, don't use Control V. That might not work in the PowerShell. We just right click and click paste. Except mine did not work. And then cool. Okay. So what essentially this did was we're just going to see a bunch of key value pairs. Again, this is like JSON. Um, and what we're going to want to do is take this information and we're going to want to define our rules. So we're going to pick a port and we're basically going to make it into a table. And here we go. So port 2022, and it's on a table. And there's our output. So what I want to see is a screenshot of this, screenshot of your rule list, the table, and then finally, let's, we don't need to worry about the curl. Let's focus a little bit more on some network security groups. Again, we're just sticking with the sandbox tool. This is a testing environment that's free. I thought it'd be better if you can just copy and paste these commands instead of having to type out every single command. So, oh, and this is just going to create another port for us to use, and it'll allow HTTP. Cool. So when we run this, and we paste it, we're making a second port. All right. All right, let's get back to the PowerPoint. Also, so what I want is first your network security group. Only one of them is fine. I did both just to show you can add another one. And basically setting up your virtual machine and network security group. All right. So the way the internet receives this information, because I know some of you haven't taken cloud and you're wondering what any of this is. I kind of think of it like a mailbox. So you're receiving these packets of information one by one, and these pieces are going to be sent um, to whatever sort of recipient you'd want. So like in a mailbox, you drop this letter into the mailbox. But the thing about the mailbox as well is once you send something, you don't put your hand in and grab information as well, or the letter. So when it comes to the internet, you wouldn't be able to take that information back. But also it's looking for all these other paths to take, and then you're finding the best route. Um, so just think of BGP as a way of sending information or packets through the internet. And the way I think of that is a mailbox. And then it talks about VPNs. So I give some background information on why we want to use a VPN. But all you really need to know is we're going to use VPNs to safely and securely share sensitive information. And there's 4 types of VPN gateways. So You can connect between virtual networks. There's point-to-site connections, multi-site connections, and then Azure Express connection. So it just talks about those, but here are the 4 gateways itself. So there's one where you have active and standby. So you're going to configure 2 instances. One will be standby, one will be active. And these instances assume responsibility. So the active one will be the one that will be running. And if there's some sort of disruption, the one on standby will assume its responsibilities. Then you have an active one. So this one creates 2 separate tunnels. So they each will have an IP address. And then you have the express route failover one. So this one just ensures that there's going to be connection to virtual networks. The nice thing about the express route failover is that there's going to be built-in resilience. And then there's zone redundant gateways. So this one uses express route failover and a VPN gateway. So this one will be like the most resilient, scalable, high availability in terms of VPN gateways. And then a DNS and express route. So they really talk about express route. And you might be wondering what express route is. So I put it into like basic terms, allows you to exchange data with the BGP protocol we talked about. So there's packets and use Microsoft services. That's pretty much it. I have a little bit more of formative definition, but it's still very basic. It allows you to connect offices, data centers, or other facilities to Microsoft Cloud and create a private connection in the cloud. And then again, this will let you talk to the BGP protocol and routes to any sort of Azure storage or Cosmos DB. So Azure's DNS. So the reason we have DNSs is so you don't have to memorize the IP addresses. And it's basically the internet's way of mapping a URL to the correct IP address. So when you type in www.miscommunitysite.com, that'd be a DNS. And it would be in the specifically mapping that URL to that correct IP address. All right, and that's it. So I try to keep it short so I understand more people can do the TDs and it's not as tough. So some important dates. We're gonna have the speaker series on the 24th. We're gonna have Murder Mystery Night. This one's gonna be very good. And it's gonna be from 6 to 7:30 p.m. We're gonna have a PD on that Friday as well, the 28th. And then we're gonna have TD and the Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Also, the speaker series on Monday is gonna be Professor Doyle, so that'll be really good. So a lot of good events coming up. And then the deliverable. So I make a quiz on Canvas now. It's not graded or anything, but I do evaluate on a pass or fail basis. So if you're not getting 60%, and most of the answers I take are actually everything I take is from the slides. So you should be fine. And then any questions as well, let me go back. Here's my email. I'll be happy to help you. And that's it. All right. I'll see you in the next one.